Once upon a time, in the heart of the jungle, lived a bunch of extremely mischievous monkeys. They were so naughty that they were constantly getting into trouble. One day they found an old, slightly rusty rocket ship in the jungle. It was so overgrown with vines that it had been hidden for decades. But now the monkeys wanted to use it for their evil schemes. Now this is important. Don't forget that these monkeys were extremely evil, but they were also extremely stupid. So what do you think they did? That's right! They decided to turn the rocket into a banana storage unit. Yep, because they were really smart. They thought that a rocket made of bananas would be the best way to store bananas. Of course, none of them knew how to read, so they didn't know that the rocket was actually labeled "Do Not Eat." They started to peel the bananas and stick them onto the rocket. And after a few hours, the whole thing looked like one giant banana. They climbed inside, pulled some levers, and hit some buttons. You know, just the kind of stuff that evil monkeys, who are also stupid, would do. Suddenly, the rocket started shaking violently, and all the monkeys screamed as they shot up into the sky. When they finally stopped screaming, they realized that they were floating through outer space. The beautiful Earth was getting smaller and smaller until it looked like just a tiny blue dot. At first, all the monkeys panicked. They started running around the spaceship in circles, swinging from the walls and making tons of noise. It was like a giant monkey party. But then one particularly stupid monkey looked out of the window and saw something that made him stop dead in his tracks. It was the moon, and it looked like a giant peeled banana. Now, you can probably guess what this stupid little monkey thought. He was so excited that he started bouncing up and down. Then he started climbing up the wall of the rocket. And before anyone knew what was happening, he was already out in space. The other monkeys started screaming again, but by now, no one could do anything about it. The stupid little monkey bounced around on the moon for a bit, and then he started trying to peel it. Well, at least that was his intention. But when he touched the moon, his hand went right through it. Confused, he tried again and again, but the moon wasn't peeling at all. It was hard, cold, and definitely not a giant banana. Dejected, the little monkey sat down on the moon and started crying. He missed his comfy rocket, his fellow monkeys, and most of all, he missed his bananas. Meanwhile, back in the rocket, the other monkeys were having a much better time. They were playing space games, eating whatever they could find, and generally just having a blast. Suddenly, one of the monkeys noticed something strange. It was the same monkey that had gone outside earlier, only now he was much bigger. In fact, he was so big that he looked like an enormous gorilla. The other monkeys were scared at first, but then they started laughing. They teased the big monkey for being so stupid and getting lost on the moon. But the big monkey didn't care about their laughter. He was too busy exploring the moon. He jumped around, made funny faces, and generally just had the time of his life. The other monkeys couldn't help but laugh along. After all, even though they were evil, they were also incredibly happy to have such a big and empty playground all to themselves. They played hide and seek, tag, and all kinds of other games, but eventually they got bored. The Earth was still visible in the distance, and it looked like a giant peeled banana. All the monkeys started staring at it and drooling. They were so hungry for real bananas that they didn't care anymore about their evil schemes or their mischief. One of the braver monkeys decided to climb out of the airlock again. This time, he brought a big knife with him. He was going to cut off a piece of the moon and bring it back to the others. Of course, he didn't know that the moon wasn't actually a banana, but by now nothing could surprise him anymore. As soon as he touched the moon with his knife, it started shaking and vibrating. Then it exploded and turned into a giant banana smoothie. The monkey screamed as the smoothie splashed all over him. When it hit his eyes, He couldn't see anything anymore. Blinded and confused, he stumbled back into the rocket and fell over. The other monkeys heard him scream and were very worried. They started poking him and asking what had happened. But he couldn't answer. He was too busy licking the smoothie off his fur. Every time he licked, he learned more about space flight and bananas. And before long, he was in charge of the entire operation. He told the other monkeys to make the rocket go faster, faster, and they did it without asking any questions. They flew past the Earth and the Moon and headed deeper into space. It didn't take long before they reached a new planet. It looked just like Earth, only everything was made of cheese. There were cheese mountains, cheese trees, and even cheese rivers. The monkeys went wild. They started climbing all over the cheese mountains, swinging from the cheese trees and swimming in the cheese rivers. They ate so much cheese that their bellies were round like balls. Then they started playing again, only now they used the cheese as toys. They rolled cheese boulders down the mountains, made cheese catapults, and built giant cheese towers. They played until they were exhausted, and then they climbed into the rocket again. This time, the little monkey who had gone to the moon before was in charge. He had learned a lot since then, and he knew exactly where to steer the rocket. He wanted to visit the stars now, and the other monkeys cheered him on. They had no idea where they were going, but they didn't care. They just wanted to keep playing. The rocket went up and up until it reached the clouds. Then it broke through the atmosphere and entered orbit around the Earth. As the monkeys were flying past their own planet, they realized how small and insignificant it was. They had seen so many amazing things that they didn't care about their mischief anymore. They didn't even care about bananas. All they wanted to do was keep playing, and so they did. They played until the end of time.